I wanted to take a moment to talk about the mortgage loan process and to give you a few tips and maybe just a little input on making it as stress-free and as smooth as possible. One of the things that we first want to talk about, that during the process while your home's being built and then after you've made an application for the mortgage loan, it's very important that you do not apply for any new loans or any kind of new credit or acquire any new debt during that process. One of the things with a lot of the newer lending guidelines and everything else that a lot of people don't realize is most of the mortgage lenders these days, they will pull a credit report the day before closing. So in many cases, even though this may not have a substantial effect on your overall situation, or it may affect your debt ratio and not allow you to qualify, but regardless, it will totally stop the transaction. So we'd ask you to really be careful in this. Again, don't apply for anything and don't acquire any new debt during the mortgage loan process. The second thing I wanted to mention in regard to the mortgage application process is insufficient funds checks. Just wanted to kind of warn everybody that during this process you want to be very careful not to have any NSF checks that show up on your bank statement during the process, because right before we close the transaction, your lender, or most lenders, will typically ask for fresh copies of your bank statements. If these reflect return checks, this can substantially delay the closing. The third thing I wanted to point out, and I think this goes without saying, but I want to point it out anyway, is you want to make sure that you're current on any debt obligations that you have during the process while the house is being built, or from the time that you've applied to the time of closing. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that of course your lender will pull a credit report, at the time that you apply, but they'll pull another credit report shortly before closing. And so if you've had any past due payments, this can disqualify you from your loan. So you want to be very aware of that. One of the fourth things that I'd mentioned during the mortgage process, and one of the things that this is, again, maybe a little bit to the point of overkill, but I always believe in, knowing your credit, and I personally have a credit monitoring service. I recommend, especially during the process, that you sign up for a credit monitoring service. It's relatively inexpensive. There are several good ones. We don't advocate one over the other, but it's always a good insurance to just make sure that nothing's popping up between now and the time that your new home is finished.